A pleasant good morning to you, NTA leader, Captain Gary Griffith, former commissioner. Well, this morning the place is hot, whereby we wanted to, just a minor, 1 p.m. supporter call and say the crime is not at its worst, right? We also had a little debate this morning based on the whole issue of the SSA that they say try to overthrow a government, or they went in that kind of direction. And now we've seen where they're having interviews with them, where we see looking to rehire back, where reporters asking Mr. Hines some pertinent questions, and you see, we're going. So who best to give us an idea of what they own? If it's a witch hunt, some people say, well, I said this morning that I wonder if the 15 or 14 of them that they fired and still doing interviews with the rest there, is it that rest now, the massaging them or putting them in a spot to organize to go after Gary Griffith again? I'm just assuming, based on the lack of information by the National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines. A pleasant good morning to you again. What says thou, Gary?
Well, good morning to you and to your many listeners. Well, the first thing is, whoever is that PNM caller to say that crime is not that bad, I don't know, they need to pull their head out of the sand. It's not just about crime statistics, even though it is the worst we've ever seen, but it is also about the perception and fear of crime. The country has never felt so fearful of crime. And we have the hierarchy of the police service handpicked by the government, where they feel that the only avenue to reduce crime is to have roadblocks. Only in a banana republic, people, you all would have gone, people listening to it. So the PNM Tell Your Dead supporters who usually travel to London, to Miami, to New York, to Canada, have you ever seen a roadblock? Have you ever seen a roadblock last more than 15 minutes? But the reason for that is because of the incompetence of the hierarchy of the police service, who have never traveled further north than Tobago, not understanding that after 15 minutes, a roadblock becomes totally irrelevant because of Waze, because of group chats, because of criminals having their lead scout. So anything after 15 minutes, the criminal has to be the dumbest criminal in the world to stay in a roadblock with illegal weapons or drugs. And that what you do now is inconvenience the citizens, cause them to frustrate themselves more, despise the police more, cause public trust and confidence to become even less than the 8% at this time, which is the lowest ever compared to the 59% when I was there. So to the PNM joker who said that it's not that bad, put that in your pipe and smoke it. As it pertains to the SSA situation, yet again, when he listed Fitzgerald Hines, he said that a one-man show has continued. This one-man show they speak about leads a political party that went after the 31 safest PNM seats and cut inroads almost as much as 80%, where PNM would have won by 1,300 votes. We could cut it down to 200 in some of their safest seats. So that is this. So what he refers to as the one-man show is the same individual that forced him to call a press conference, that forces his prime minister to call my name every 5 minutes. I think he calls my name more than Sharon, and he calls Sharon's name now. So this one-man show has become the biggest thorn in the side of the PNM. I have become the major concern for the PNM, and we will continue to do so by exposing their lies, their incompetence, and the way that they continue to affect national security. By the prime minister deliberately removing 24 persons in the SSA. It is not coincidental, Trinidad and Tobago, that it is almost simultaneous to the high spike in crime that when these persons were removed, because these individuals provided what was known as predictive policing, intelligence-driven policing, that provided the information to the police to prevent the crime from taking place. That is what these individuals did. Trinidad and Tobago never had that before. In New York City, there are 35,000 police officers. 3,000 of them drive taxis, sell hot dogs, or vagrants. They work undercover. They go in the underworld, become part of the terrorist groups and so forth to know what is taking place. We never had that until I became commissioner. And that's where we started having covert operatives. Because of Keith Rowley's incompetence and lack of knowledge and understanding in national security, he did not know that. He stupidly also stated that would SSA have firearms? And PNM Till Your Dead supporters foolishly listened to that. The SSA equates with the CIA. Do you think the CIA has slingshots and marshmallows to protect themselves? No, the SSA must have firearms to protect their officers if they go in volatile situations, 2 o'clock in the morning, to acquire intelligence in hotspot areas. And this has been done since 1995, the SSA had weapons. So it was blatant lies by the government when they said why the SSA will have weapons. They always had weapons, so they lied to the country. Then to fire 24 persons and to foolishly state that These persons were a threat to national security. They were members of a cult. They were members of a coup. They were planning to destabilize the government. They are terrorists. You make all of these statements, and not up to now, not one name you could call and not one person arrested. So you make accusations that we have persons involved in terrorist activities controlling our major intelligence unit, and you can't call a name. And that is what has happened now, based on your question. Because they realize now that you've made damning accusations on these 24 individuals, these persons cannot work anywhere again. You have smeared their character. They probably can't even get a visa to go to the United States. You have accused them of being terrorist cult members, possible assassins. And because they know that each of them are now going to sue the state and the same taxpayer, whether you're PNM or UNC or NTA taxpayer, you're now going to have to pay $10 to $20 million for each person because they can never work again. You have now destroyed their character. Multiply that by 24. This could go up to almost $500 million that is going to cost the state. Because they realize their lies, what they've done now is get the representatives of the SSA to meet with these individuals to ask them to return. Why would you ask persons to return if you thought that they were cult members or they were assassins or they were terrorists? Because you knew it was a lie. This was identical to what took place when the Emailgate lie came about, which is what Robbie loves to do, go in parliament to read lies so he would not be sued. You stated that Gary Griffith was involved in a plan to assassinate a reporter, but then 2 years later you recommend him to be commissioner of police. You wouldn't do that unless you knew what was in Emailgate was a lie. And it's the same thing that they are doing now. The state wouldn't ask to bring these persons back unless they knew fully well that they are not terrorists. Why would you ask people to come back if there's still an ongoing investigation? Because the DCP stated that this matter is still being investigated. Even though this DCP didn't understand that an AR-15 is not an assault rifle. The man foolishly thought AR meant assault rifle. An AR-15 is a semi-automatic weapon. Educate yourself, DCP Benjamin, and understand. But that's what happens when you have senior police officers who have never held a firearm or gone on a range in years. So going back to this point now, you have asked these persons to come back. And the lies that if you listen to Fitzgerald Hines yesterday, he continued to state, no, it's a lie. Nobody has been rehired. We never said that, Fitzy. Don't try to fool the country with your nonsense. What we said is that you have now sent representatives to meet with these people you fired, asking them to return in the hope that they would not sue you. And then when the media asked Hines that, he said, I'm not prepared to answer that. So the state, the government have now sent representatives begging for these persons to return in the hope that they will not sue the state. And it shows the point, if you were so sure that these persons were terrorists, were cult members, why would you want them to return to the SSA? Let me finally add, the lies to justify firing them by stating that they were involved in a unit that was not established. Total nonsense. As the Commissioner of Police, I formed the Gender-Based Violence Unit, the Rapid Response Unit, the Emergency Response Patrol, the Special Operation Response Team, the Operational Command Center, the Social Media Monitoring Unit, dozens of units that were not fully and formally established by the TTPS. You think you could fire them? No, what you would have done is reassign them if you wanted to disband the unit, like you did with SORT. SORT officers could not be fired. So the lies to justify firing these people by stating that they were in a unit that was not formally established cannot justify firing people. What you would have done is shut down the unit and reassign them. But you fired them, called them assassins and terrorists, and now you're trying to rehire them. You would not rehire them unless you knew fully well that they were never those persons that you accused them of being in the first place.
Wow. Wow. So let me ask something. Say, do you believe that this all of this is really and truly to try to go get Gary? Because it just keep coming across like that. As you say, Dr. Rowley calls your name more than he even calls a significant one that he's married to. So do you believe all of this? And what do you think that you'll see more of this in the future?
Well, the first thing, Keith Rowley needs to somebody please tell him he's not my type, so I'm not interested. If I'm calling my name every 5 minutes, that's one. Two, what happened yet again, this is a desperate attempt. The PNM, they've done their polls, massive polls they've done, and they've realized that the UNC has a support base of about 35% that they cannot shift. That remains under the UNC and Kamala Prasad-Bisseso. 8 to 10% come under the NTA. And that 10% decides who gets into government. That 10% will comprise primarily persons who would be previous PNM supporters who may not be supportive of the UNC, and they will shift. That is what he's fearful of. So those type of supporters, when they work with the ULF in 86, when they worked with the and with the UNC in 2010, speaks annihilation for the PNM. And that is what is his concern. So he knows that, look, my main threat is Gary Griffith. That is why every single thing is targeted to try to discredit me, smear my name, have me arrested. And they have been throwing every single thing under the sun. They've hired 70 police officers for the last 3 years to be involved in investigations in the hope to find anything as it pertains to the firearm issue. And that is 500,000 police hours used. 500,000 police hours in the last 3 years investigating legal firearms. And up to now, not one name you could call, not one weapon could be seized, and not one person charged. And the reason being is that you can't arrest people on lies. So they failed with the firearms. After 3 audits, nothing could come out of it. Then they came now with the SSA. Somebody fooled them into believing Gary Griffith gave out weapons to the SSA, which was a lie. If there are police officers in the SSA, I can always issue weapons to the police officers in the performance of their duties with the SSA. But they thought, Gary gave weapons to a private civilian organization, we have him. When they realized it was a lie and it failed, they had to do damage control now to try to shift the goalposts after all of this bacchanal they did by firing the SSA director. And that is why they turned to this nonsense. And my point being is, I'm not here to protect all 24. Even if one of them really and truly committed a crime, you can't be such a foolish prime minister and the chair of a National Security Council to make these damning accusations without any shred of evidence, witnesses, documents, or anyone being charged. So you make a public statement. The world is hearing that Trinidad and Tobago has terrorists, has assassins in the heart of your intelligence agency. You imagine the USA says that CIA has persons in the CIA involved as being terrorists, plans to assassinate the president, a cult.
Go ahead.
Exactly. If that had happened, the whole United States would be totally at risk to be seen as a terrorist state. That is what Keith Rowie has done to this country, because that is where our watches, we started being red flagged throughout the world, because you have a prime minister stating that our major intelligence agency consists of persons in a cult, in a terrorist group, assassins, plan to overthrow the government, plan for an attempted coup, in the heart of the intelligence agency, yet you cannot arrest one person or call one name, giving the impression that these persons are still around there. And that is where his fault, his mistake took place. He made this stupid comment, and now you have affected the reputation, not just of these 24 citizens, but the country, locally and internationally. Yeah, you cannot get a name whilst the matter is still under investigation. If a matter is still under investigation, why would you make such a damning statement to embarrass Trinidad and Tobago, and you can't charge one person? And now to top it off, because he is so desperate, because we thought we were going after Gary, we realized it was a lie again. Somebody have to go to jail. So let's just make these wild accusations. These citizens have rights. And because of their rights, he realized they're all going to court. And now he has to do a U-turn to hope that they could come back, in the hope that they will go back into the same SSA. If you knew that these persons are terrorists and assassins, why would you have representatives of your government meet with them to ask them to return? It shows just like the firearm audit. It showed just like Emailgate. Keith Rowie and Fitzgerald Hines have lied yet again to the country. And by doing that, how could anyone want these individuals to run not just national security, but to run a country?
Oh boy. Thanks so much, Gary Griffith. Oh boy, let me liaise with the people. Yes, man.